They can't see it.
Okay.
Ignore it.
So here's the quote of the day from H.P. Blavatsky's quotation book for April 28th from The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, page 634. The one life is closely related to the one law which governs the world of being, karma. Exoterically, this is simply and literally action, or rather an effect-producing cause. Esoterically, it is quite a different thing in its far-fetching moral effects. It is the unerring law of retribution.
But James, I understand a lot of people didn't get my email, the reminder for the class on the online link. So we're having an audible this week. We're switching gears back to spiritual ethics because of some schedule changes and things like that. So we have some awesome notes here to guide us along. We'll keep up on the screen. So yeah.
Okay. Welcome. Hi everyone online. So last week we were discussing the three fundamentals, and the second being the law of cycles of karma and reincarnation. And it was quoted that karma is a doctrine of responsibility and reincarnation as a doctrine of hope. So when we think of these, we can think of them as like the equilibrium of action of the one life, which is the first fundamental. And what James just read about the first fundamental and the second fundamental goes, we're going to see how by being responsible for our thoughts, words, and actions, this affects everyone that we come in contact with. And the last time we talked about this, we also talked about like what's the difference? You know, there's a big difference between like the morals of society from one time period to the next and spiritual ethics. So we could say that spiritual ethics is really based on the three fundamentals: this one life, karma, reincarnation, how we all are, affecting each other. We talked about how our thoughts, words, and actions, one of the last times, affect the elementals. So beyond what we even can see, our thoughts, words, and actions affect different things and different beings. So in our daily life experiences, we're creating our karma moment by moment, thought by thought, word by word, action by action. And we alone are responsible for our thoughts, words, and actions. And as humans, in all the kingdoms, the mineral, the vegetable, animal, to the human level, we're the only ones that have free will to choose. So we can choose what our thoughts, words, or actions will be, and as well as choose what our attitudes towards our circumstances will be. So in understanding this, then we can understand that we're not the victims of our circumstances, and we have control over how we're going to react to our circumstances. And we realize that we've been born into our circumstances to learn from our experiences. And that's going to be part of the third fundamental also. So, yes.
For my own clarification. So, third fundamentals aren't things like, since you said it does work really well with just another explanation of spiritual ethics. These aren't things that are just for Theosophists, that are just for people studying here. These three fundamentals are part of to live a life by karma and by an altruistic, almost non-dual.
Well, yeah. If you look at what the golden rule is, that's not just a philosophical, and that's kind of what differentiates spiritual ethics from the morals of society. You have to look at it from this universal principle of universal connection with all, and this response that like karma is our, like, we're responsible for what happens to ourselves, to each other. So yeah, it's not just for Theosophists, it's for everyone. Anyone else? Yes.
Well, you mentioned that how we affect, everything beyond our some comprehension.
Yeah.
So philosophy presents us the sevenfold nature in humanity. So we can think that that would be part of the beyond our comprehension. So these proposals are then being the sevenfold constitution that beside the physical, we have the astral, we have the desire, psychic, karmic, we have the obviously mind, mental, our mind involved in personal desire. So then beyond that, then we might say, when it's mentioned manas or the mind collectively, and beyond that, we have what we may say compassion for everything. And those are the planes that might be considered beyond our comprehension, which is normally this sevenfold constitution. In maybe they have it in some other systems, of the Indian philosophy, but Theosophy gives us a lot of details on how we affect and we are being affected by our thoughts and our action, but mostly our thoughts and our intentions, our motives, because we create this kind of like waves in the world of thought, and we are affecting things that we cannot think of or conceive of, and at the same rate, we might be affected by others in the same manner if we are to a point attracted to certain things and ideas. We can get sort of influenced, but it depends on ourselves, because we sort of create a shield for certain things. I attract certain things and I repel certain things. So when you begin attracting better things, then and thinking and acting, then you're gonna be in that kind of nature of attracting those similar things to what what you think or your behavior in a way. So I think those are the ideas that there's this beyond our comprehension of these worlds, which are within ourselves, really, and so anyway, that the idea of karma, how karma affects and might affect me too, in both directions.
Well, we can see throughout history waves of thought, with nations and even the world, can have certain like waves of thought. And there's usually, sort of from what I've kind of observed in, just in the recent past history of the United States, there's always sort of like more wave of thought of more universal ideas like starting to happen, and then there's a backlash, and then there's more of a wave of a thought.
The Enlightenment didn't work? Oh, man.
Yeah, but so there seems to be, a group, group mind in certain countries, and even, multiple countries, and then like, observed then there's like backlash, then a little bit step further of maybe having more universal ideas and so forth. And, as we know right now, we're very divided in a lot of things. But that's very, not really, I guess, on a superficial level, if we're thinking about spiritual things, we're very divided on things, and based on, what is it based on? Emotions, more of that psychic, lower monastic nature of ourselves. And so that's why, you know, we're talking about spiritual ethics. I think that's like what's really important, to realize that we're from this one source, realize how we're connected, so that, you know, we from day to day, we're not going to have such a divided, you know, society. But that takes, you know, it takes people being open to that. I was just watching, one of the things I was watching on PBS was a really good documentary about how they're starting groups for civil discourse, and they're having people on both sides of Republican and Democrat come together and have, you know, civil discourse about issues, and try to like really, you know, even though they're very divided, different mindsets, trying to talk together and work together. So, you know, midst of like the divisiveness, there's sometimes comes out, you know, some positive aspect too.
Yeah, I think it's what you were saying too with the ebb and flow and things like that's one of the advantages of older age, is you're finally able to see that ebb and flow in like society or your own environment and things like that. But there's that when we're young, you know, you're like 20 and you're in the middle of like the zeitgeist of your time, and you think it's going to last forever. This is reality. This is time, and then it's, you know, 15 years later, what?
Right. Yeah.
Everything's different. Yeah.
Part of what happens is there's the resistance for change,
Absolutely.
and then people, there's a certain amount of energy, and there's a backlash, and people start, you know, dropping away. And you know, you have to think that, you know, there's a lot of different reasons why people have backlashes, and part of the problem is it's hard to change from what you know to go into something that you're not sure about. And so people are very resistant, and it's been used all through history to get people against each other as a way of kind of controlling society.
Right, conquer.
It works like a charm. Yeah.
But the thing is, no matter how much people can look back and say, oh yeah, I can see what happened in World War II, I see why, you know, World War I happened, all that stuff, they can look back but not equate it to what's going on with themselves currently. And it's really, you know, it's a hard thing to address because it affects, it's not just here. If you look around the globe, there's really big resistances and anguish, different fighting. You know, Africa is really in a major battle with all different tribes and outside influences trying to get there. Europe is dealing with a lot of problems because, yeah, it's not just one isolated area.
One example that I think has been a really weird thing for me is I've paid attention to Japan lately, and Japan has rebuilt a really potent military again, and they had the Prime Minister addressed U.S. Congress for the first time in, you know, forever, and they're talking about this future technological alliance between the U.S. and Japan. You're like, oh great, that's awesome. But the only thing he was talking about was weapons development.
Yeah.
Was these two, the strength of all our money, all our science, all of this united to see if we can come up with better bombs, or we will, you know, sure. And it's just like, wow, you got that guy in front of Congress after all these years, and that's what it takes to get people stoked.
Japan has
Weapons.
cars that can turn into robots.
Give us
Little cars.
bullet trains. How bad do we need those? I don't know.
Okay, so continuing on, so then if we do, you know, we do recognize that we're all from this one life and are connected, then we can start to understand why spiritual ethics with its underlying virtues are necessary for our evolution and real happiness. So if we act from a spiritually ethical basis, do we not then gain like confidence and courage and trust in ourselves that we're doing the best, and therefore like can be content with ourselves? You know, there's so much discontent with people's selves. They're you know, very lost, and I think this is a basis. If we're working from this basis, we can feel content that we're doing the best we can, and that, you know, we have purpose to keep going. You know, there's so many people that I think are lost, don't feel like they have purpose. But I think this gives a purpose. So, you know, on the surface, we can intellectually accept or partially accept that we're all connected, but what does it mean to really live this every day? So when we look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what motivates us to do what we do day to day? You know, so what, like, maybe some people can say, like, what, you know, we're kind of in a group of, you know, this is maybe preaching to the choir, but like, why do everyone do what they do every day? What motivates you?
I think for me, a big one is like to just, I think knowledge and I think a big part of what motivates me is to be good to my loved ones and those around me and to help them. And to do that, I found I have to kind of like study and feed myself so I can not be just an irritable mess and things like that when fires turn up, you know. But yeah, I think a big motivator for a lot of us is, you know, our loved ones and helping them or facilitating, you know, our children or our families' lives and livelihoods. And so that covers, I mean, a whole bunch of things that we have to do for ourselves to be of help, to be the best help we can be. So in a way, I think a lot of us do that.
Roberto?
Well, yeah, I went along with that because you said that our families are, you know, the first that we kind of put some energy into it based on the perspective that we have in our society. But then we find with Theosophy a totally huge, you know, grand, really grande perspective.
Mucho grande.
Yeah, mucho grande perspective that a lot of things begin to change, you know, and now you know that it's not only your family, but the whole world is your whole family, because precisely by studying the fundamentals, you realize that, you know, it's a lot more than just my family. It's a lot more than just my desires or my plans to have a better life, or it goes beyond having a better car and a better house and having, you know, property. This really takes care of all of that and makes at least the part of the properties and the stuff, then they kind of lose the value that you need to give them. Not that they're not important, you know, they're important. You need a car to get here, you know, you need a job to eat, to feed your family. But then other things become a lot more important. Then you realize that, wow, you know, whatever I think I do, even if I blow air in the thin air, I'm affecting other lives. I didn't realize that this space is full of lives. Just because I didn't see anything before, you know, there aren't there. But now you know that right here in front of my nose, there's a whole universe of lives that I cannot still see or perceive. But you begin to be convinced that that's how it is. Because, you know, this so-called empty space is really not empty, but it's called, you know, some other scriptures, the plenum, which is plenty of everything right in front of my eyes. So I think that, you know, those are things that kind of motivate you to go on and to even do better things than just doing things. You know, of course, you begin with your family because that's your responsibility. But then, as it was mentioned, these two doctrines of karma and reincarnation kind of balance each other, because as you get more responsibility, then you get more hope that, oh, this is not the only life. I'll have many more lives. You know, of course, not to leave everything for tomorrow, right? But at least you know that you can change things. If you will see something so difficult in this life that you cannot accomplish, and I'm not talking about personal things, but then you see, oh, there's a lot of hope to a lot of better things than just my personal little things.
Does Universal Brotherhood like spread towards not only like all of your human family, but also to future incarnations? Like, is there even that? I mean, we're supposed to be looking towards the future, and that's a, you know, not like our family isn't just us here today, it's through all time.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, how do generations get influenced?
Yeah.
You know, how did we learn? We learned from our parents, from their parents, you know. But now we're learning from a different place, a more universal place, so we kind of have to forget those. And one of the things I think it might have been Rob, a Theosophist that has passed on, but I think he mentioned one time, he said, it's like the question is, you know, everyone goes to work, they do their work, but what do you do on your time off? How do you spend your time off? And that's like, you know, and I found that changes, like when you start to study Theosophy and you're trying to have a more universal and compassionate and altruistic, you know, like Roberto said, some of these things fall away that are not so important, you know, and what you're doing with your spare time changes too.
Well, it's like that's our spare time when we're working, especially that's our most precious time. And so that's why it's impressive when you see people giving their spare time to something like this, because I mean, it's really precious time, all of us with their jobs and everything like that. And it's also shows the ebb and flow of like society and culture too, that there aren't as many people say today as there might have been in like the 20s to like really dedicate their free time to the investigation of latent psychic abilities, something. Yeah.
I have one idea.
Okay.
The life is like a marathon. We run every day without thinking twice until we stop. And when I stop and I realize, and I remember the master say, we don't have a time to look at for the effect. It's only for the cause. Okay. In that one, when I stop my life to in the marathon, now is a different view, because like in the beginning say the way where we come, that's why I'm thinking twice, no in the first instant, because I think about and also when I wake up, if I remember what I have to do in my first thought, is different if I don't think about what I have to do. So it's different day when I doing what I supposed to do. Okay, I feeling like on knowledge, or I'm more alert. That's the word. I'm more alert. When I wake up and I'm doing what I'm doing, right away doing my business, it's different. It's different. But at least I stop and I realize the different day when I have to do it, the thing, or I don't do it. Right. So I'm feeling the different, and the way is very important, because like Roberto, everybody say, the first nuclear is my family, but this nuclear or circle is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger if I have the responsibility of what I'm doing. Because the second or the first, my family, and then is my work. Between that one, okay, now I have, with 7 years, I have many books to look at, but it's not, I'm doing also for relax. It's different, because I want to be out of my work, so I start to reading. But the problem for me is I couldn't stop it to read, because I got one thing, and then I realized, because my mind is like they turn on many TV. I don't know if I explain myself. It's a many TV, because then I realized, that's one is because that one is, and that one is coming to the other one, and the other one. It's like all the TV together and with the same channel, but in different way. I don't know if I explain myself.
No,
Well, I think, you recognize the difference, when you said this difference between your day-to-day activity and then when you're kind of focused, more alert. But that's also what we have to practice too, is what, is called like the daily meditation that I think Judge or Blavatsky talk about, the daily meditation where we are focused with this, trying to come from, our higher mind with these ethics and ideals, virtues, in everyday life and everyday circumstance and whatever we do. And that's like the practice of bringing the studies to everyday life. Doing, even just washing the dishes, focusing.
Yeah, I think that's why there's so much talk about action and fire and because all of this stuff it's not a dead letter. We got to do something about it, or it's just, nice
Put it in
words.
practice, right, yeah. So, with, so we were talking about what motivates us, and, a lot of what motivates us are personal likes and dislikes. We're, as Theosophists, we're obviously trying to change that and come from a more universal aspect. And that's what Judge in this first paragraph in the handout directs us to say. So does someone want to read that first paragraph, number 1, some may ask?
Okay.
Okay.
It's the same, the one you emailed?
Yeah, the one on email.
Some, I have an extra one. Some may ask, that's the one.
Yeah.
Some may ask if there is not any sort of study that will enable us to shave off these all erroneous modes of thought. To them, I can only give the experience of many of my friends in the same direction, they say, and they are supported by the very highest authority, that the one process is to inquire into and attempt to understand the law of a spiritual unity and the fact that no one is separate, but that all are one in the plane of spirit, and that no simple person has a particular spirit of his own, but that Atman, called the seventh principle, is in fact the synthesis of the whole and is a common property of every being, high and low, human, animal, animate, inanimate, or divine. This is the teaching of the Mundaka Upanishad of the Hindus, and the meaning of the title Mundaka is shaving, because it shaves off the errors which stand in the way of truth, permitting them the brilliant lamp of spiritual knowledge to illuminate our inner nature.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Where it says that no single person has a particular spirit of his own, does that just mean that that undifferentiated like spirit is identical, or does it mean it's not just one big one, or that we're all identical when it comes to that, like everything shaped away?
Well, it says in the plane of a spirit, and that's why Atman is there, which means that from that perspective, we don't have differences.
Yeah.
We're not just individuals, we're just the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we go to the manifested planes or here on earth, then we see differences, and each one is different. But I think this is from the perspective of of the idea of the seventh principle. In the seventh principle, in each of us, we might say that from the sevenfold constitution, we might see differences in all of the principles, but on the seventh, it's all the same in a way.
Right.
Of course, it's how to display all the same.
Yeah, it's like if there's one spirit, and you're part of it, it's part of you. So in the same sense that you could have an ocean, you could take a glass of water and separate it into individual water drops. But in reality, it's all the same, even though they're separated out from the same source. Except the difference is, it's like having a glass of water that's in the ocean.
Yeah.
We have mind, which individualizes its experiences. But even that, as a collection, is individual, but everyone shares it. That's why on the mind plane, you could know all of my experiences and feelings from all of my incarnations. The same way that is if you're working on your computer and you have a problem and you call a tech support and they just tapped into your computer and fix it with like my computer anywhere type of thing, they're tapping directly into your memory bank and stuff on the computer.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, we have that at a very higher level naturally. And that's the thing that's hard. We make mechanical things for things we already have naturally. And they're crude examples of what is already there. And that's the difference. Like it takes something. Let's say we take the Dalai Lama, who is conscious on his own incarnations, but he's also conscious of what his purpose is this time around.
Mm-hmm.
And he's conscious of why you don't do certain things, because he knows the cause and he can extrapolate the experience or the result. We just see the finished product. If we take an action, even if we're saying we're not thinking about it, we're using our mind to take a reactionary action. It's based on stimuli that our mind has already made. And so someone goes to punch you, you think, so you either duck or you punch them. And they might just go say, hey, I'm so glad to see you. And your mind's like, oh, they're going to smack me. And you're already in a defensive mode. Sure. And it's part of your mind that you've conditioned this time around. But there's also that mind that has stored all the distilled experiences of our different lives to get a group understanding. And that group understanding, everyone has a tap into it.
So just for like clarity, when in Theosophy, when I often see the term Atman and Atma, it's pretty much just the Hindu Atman Brahman concept, correct? That's almost exactly the same.
The what?
Like in Hinduism, the concept of the Atman Brahman, the ultimate.
Brahman?
Yeah.
Well, it's a little different. I
Excellent.
think it's because in this sense, what it corresponds to, let's say, to Brahma without the accent, because there are two Brahmas. In the glossary, you see a Brahma and the absolute.
Yeah.
And that might be corresponding to this Atma.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then Brahman
Yes.
with a tilde, I don't know what.
No, I gotcha. Yeah. I just
And
got
that's the one being already in manifestation.
Yeah.
But this Atma is beyond manifestation, although, it's everywhere, in everything. That's why what it says here below, this seventh principle, in fact, is the synthesis of the whole and the common property of every being, high and low, human, animal, animate, divine, or etc. So that may be an aspect of
Right. Yeah. No, I think I was just confusing myself. Like,
Well, it's not easy though.
yeah.
In the glossary, it says, universal spirit, the divine monad, the seventh principle, so-called in the septenary constitution of man, supreme soul.
Beautiful. That's perfect. Yeah.
But yeah, it does get confusing. Atman, and Brahman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, that's was mentioned. You cannot really pinpoint these terms, because they could mean a lot of different things.
And different religions have different expressions to the same thing.
Yeah.
So even like with the Christian religion, they say God is omnipotent and omnipresent. So how can that be if he's this being out in space? Nothing at all. But see, that's interpretation, because if people really read the Bible, even things where Jesus said, the church of God, you are the church of God and God is within you, people don't read that way.
Especially with now you have the advantage of all the like Gnostic texts put back in there that make it a lot more clear that there's even karmic and even concept of reincarnation in there and stuff. So yeah. I mean, even like they talk about meditation more than they do like prayer, like a lot of the Eastern texts. So. But yeah, I mean, up until that though, what we were left with in the Bible and Old Testament, still there's plenty of hints
there.
There's plenty, yeah.
Yeah, if you just read it with an open mind, or if you've had experience of other teachings and you read it, then you can see like, oh yeah, this is what they're talking about.
It's why whenever you run into like Rinpoche shades and like these really learned Buddhists and stuff like that, they read Jesus' words and they're like, oh yeah, it's like a Buddha. These are just like Buddha, whatever. They're not like blown away by it like Westerners are. They're like, yeah, this is Buddha, right? Yeah. All kinds of those guys.
They're not impressed.
I mean, Shanta, man, he really loves Jesus. He'll sing his praises for a lot. Yeah, he loves him.
Okay, so that's, so I think we're hitting home, like, what is the basis of spiritual ethics, this universal, concept of ourselves having within us the same thing, and potentially, we see on it, as Roberto said, in the manifested plane, there's differences and there's different levels of who, people who have started to understand these principles, but we all have the potential to understand this and to enlighten ourselves and become awake. But this is, if we start to really focus on that, we understand that that's the basis of the golden rule and, the ethics that we work from. So in the voice of the silence, along with this idea of spiritual ethics comes the virtues that we try to all perfect within ourselves. So in the voice of the silence, the next part I have, the first four are listed. Last time I only listed these first four because the other ones are more advanced, and, just to focus on these first four, I think if we delve into the real meanings, there's a lot more meaning to what they actually mean that we can, extrapolate from the talk today. So, the very first one, the charity, like key of charity and love immortal. And as it says, these are keys. So when we start to and embody these qualities, these virtues within ourselves, it does then open up more of this universal understanding. So as we perfect these within ourselves, we get a more broad and, bird's eye view of how our actions, thoughts, words affect each other, and, how this all works. And so the first one being like charity and love immortal, we can start to think about what does it really mean? What does charity mean? And some of these quotes coming, like the next few quotes are coming from the Theosophical magazine from India. Now, these are just other students' perspectives. I have to say this because it's not a direct quote from like Judge or Blavatsky or Crosby. So these are other students' interpretations of some of these ideas. So I just want to make that clear that it's not directly from some of the books. But I like these, some of the things they talk about in the Theosophical Movement magazine from India, because they put them in very practical terms. and easy to understand. And that's, you know, for this class too. I mean, we're all been students, but if there are other, you know, students that eventually come that we want to explain these things to, we have to explain them in very practical terms. Okay, so this next one, number 2, does someone want to read number 2?
Oh,
Okay. It goes, yeah,
like
all these acts of benevolence.
down to 3?
Yeah, down to that, yeah.
Okay. All these acts of benevolence, prima facie, are praiseworthy. Many such charitable works are recognized, and the philanthropists are honored and rewarded by the state and the non-state organizations. Every religion lays down deeds of charity to be a mandatory religious duty. Surely, but for such philanthropic acts of charity, which are natural to the human being, the world would have been poorer than it is now. We must, however, pause and reflect before acting on the impulse to give in charity, whether the act will truly benefit the recipient and do good to ourselves. The common belief is that it does good to both, and what matters is the act of giving. But in the opinion of the wise, however, it may not be productive of good or to either party if the benevolent act is not in accordance with the law of charity. A good outcome to a charitable deed depends on the gift made on the right occasion in the right season, the worthiness of the beneficiary, the manner of giving, and most importantly, the right motive of the part of the giver. If these criteria are not satisfied, the act of charity will not be beneficial in the true sense. To those well acquainted with the philosophy of the 3 qualities, this is quite plain. It is clearly laid down in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Interesting. Those gifts which are bestowed at the proper time to the proper person and by men who are not desirous of a return are of the sattva quality, good and of the nature of truth. The right reason, the right occasion, and the worthiness of the recipient of the gift are of importance. The manner of giving with true attention, with sincerity, goodwill, and benediction, and with a motive wholly devoid of even an iota of desire or expectation of a return, either from the act of giving or from the beneficiary, are to be diligently attended to. The gifts which we dispense are to be productive of the good. Theosophical Movement Magazine, India, Volume 12, February 2021. That's really interesting because a little while ago I studied the correlation in holy texts with explaining the laws of hospitality. They're in the Bhagavad Gita, and they're laid down like this. There's laws of how to be hospitable to who, and like what your responsibilities, what the laws are of having someone and taking care of them. It's really interesting. They kind of thought of everything over there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's look like they want to destroy ahankar, the selfish. They want to destroy or kill. If I use it like a bottle of Thailand, they say kill. Okay, that's it. I started with to destroy, to moderate, because they say repeated motivation. What kind of motivation we have to have? So that kind to is algo. Lo que hacen las estatuas. Okay, it's like David.
Sculptures.
Los escultores. Los escultores. You know, yeah, David, the Michelangelo, okay?
Yeah.
Where they have it the marble, they have it the piece of the marble,
Right.
but they say inside is the devil.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what happened. They start to do, okay, like a model, like a construction, like a, what can I say? Take what we don't need it. That is something we destroy. I have to kill that part of myself that is not belong to that myself. Because in the beginning they started talking about the Atma, about the monarch faith. They say is the similar, not the similar. Is in another way is the space. Is the space where they have it. Inside to the space doesn't matter for the space. The space is always a space, no matter what they have inside. It doesn't seem for us. No matter what happening in myself, I the divine. The only thing I don't recognize it or I don't have it or knowledge to be like that. I know,
Be aware of it.
to be aware of.
Honors had his hand up. Honors? You're on mute, so.
Yes, I think this is well chosen we start with Donna, and Donna's to Monday as it is for me. I'm in Monday right now. And the first purpose of Theosophy as well, to create a core of universal Theosophy, and that's what we start with ourselves, but to do this together, there's so much more power and purpose in it. So that's what I want to say. I think I need to go to work, but thank you for this today.
Agreed, Honors.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day at work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so anyone else thoughts about what, like, when we think in this universal way, what charity and what we've just read, what this.
It sounds too like it's a good exercise for like thinking karmically, because we think of like in modern, the way I always relate it, just because of the times we live in, is like algorithm of karma. Like you can't just look at your own karma and your own past lives and be like, oh man, I must have been awful for a bunch of lifetimes because I just have rotten luck. Well, it's like that might contribute to it, but you've also got your family karma. You've got other people's karma that's coming in. Like the algorithm is insane. Like if you were to try and make that, the information you'd be feeding it would take years and years and years. I wonder if we'll ever get an algorithm that would try to imitate like karma, but it's a good exercise to try and think that way, because it's not just our karma, and it's not just our good feelings and what we think is going to be best for everybody. There's a lot more that goes into it, especially when something like charity can be the difference between life and death for a lot of people. And so yeah, there should be some thought.
Do you want to read the next? Because that kind of addresses what you were just talking about. Sorry.
So going along with that, this is one of the many causes of suffering. The way we give, not the way it says here. So this would stop or cease some of our suffering, because what I was saying first, that most of us, we try to give things expecting something in return. Whether it be, for your other half, or your family, or brothers, or friends, but you always expect something in return. And that's
Or to be recognized.
it's some kind of suffering, because when you don't get what you expected, then trouble comes, right? So here is kind of telling us not to expect anything in return. And that would be one way of actually stop that kind of suffering in oneself. Because that way, if I truly give something, which was with the first part, with all these 4 parameters, the first one, you truly give something without expecting anything, then you're not expecting any results, whatever the results will be. And there's going to be results. There's always results for your actions. Yeah. But in this case, then because you're not expecting anything, then whatever happens is gonna keep you balanced. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you become unbalanced because you don't get what you expected. Mm-hmm. That's part of our suffering in a way. Yes, so this kind of love, immortal, and charity is one way to actually to begin stopping some of our suffering. Otherwise, stop being what is the word? when you don't wanna give or do things for others.
Selfish?
Thank you. Yeah, selfishness.
Mhm. Well, I think it's one of the fun ways I like to give like surprise gifts is just to, at the very end of a meetup or something like that, or at the very beginning, just go, here you go, here's a gift, bye. And you just don't give any time for anything else. It's just like, here it is, here, and get out of there. You know, it's like sometimes sometimes you can get awkwardness with what's the occasion. It's no occasion. You always deserve this. Here you go. It's great.
Well, here, go ahead, Tanya.
Yes, I remember, I forced my memory to try to remember. They say it's two rule they give you the master. They call Atababa y Sakayaditi. You remember that too?
Oh, what is that?
What is it?
Atababa y Sakayaditi. Atababa, Sakayaditi, and it's in the boss of the silent also. It's in the grocery, the boss of the silent. They say is to okay, to recognize you are not what you think you suppose you are. It's one, I think so. That is Atababa. Isakariaditi is you are not separate for another one. That's it. That too. That is in the Boston Asylum. I'm going to look at that the next week. I'm going to.
Please.
Atababa y Sakaya. Atababa.
Ashtabakra?
No, Atababa y Sakayaditi.
Okay, I have like another example that, let's see what we think about this. There's like a circumstance that I observed where there's someone like very wealthy, feeling like they're gonna give this extravagant gift to someone that's not so wealthy. They're thinking, they're gonna love this, it's gonna be great. So they give it, but the other person then, at some other occasion, they're like, well, I feel like I should give them something, but I can't afford to give them anything that they would
To measure up to what they gave
measure up.
you.
So, that's something,
Tricky.
so I think in this, it says you have to give when, let's say, support.
That can actually
Like
also
in
change
the right
dynamic.
season, the right occasion, you have to think of how the other person might feel if you're giving this.
You might make
to-
the person feel bad.
Or what if you give someone a Rolex and they're just like, I just need rent, man. I can't afford groceries.
Well, then you can't get upset when they sell it.
So exactly.
For half the price.
For a pawn,
For
just,
half
yeah,
the price you
exactly.
paid for it.
It's like, man, you just help me with rent.
So, there's definitely things to think about with charity. I mean, it's not that we want to stunt ourselves from trying to give and help, but with Theosophy, learning these things, we come, as we're open to our more higher learning, our intuitional self, we have more of a discernment on what is really going to be beneficial. We have a bigger perspective on how something can really help a situation, or, I had like one situation too, a long time ago where, I was working and, there was this guy, I was in the film business, and we were filming near a bar. So there were these guys coming out from the bar, and one guy, got on his motorcycle and fell over. And, my first thing is, oh, he fell over, I'm gonna go help him get up. And then and I realized when I get close, he's totally drunk. So then he gets back on his bike and goes away. I'm like, well, that wasn't a good thing to do. That circumstance. And I thought it was wrong, but I eventually could have helped to kill him, So, you get these, you can get a better perspective, I think.
It was it's like if you had gone to an accident with someone and you were gonna be the good guy and be like, oh, look, there's no damage, let's not get insurance or the police involved, but the person's stumbling drunk, who are you really doing a favor to?
Right. Okay, so,
Atababa means the accuracy of separateness. acting under that.
The heresy
How
of
do you spell
separateness.
that? How do you spell that?
What an awesome way to put it.
That's a bad one.
Oh, ATT?
LTT, yeah. I like it's in the English one, it's in the Spanish one, we have a lot more than the
I
English.
have read that.
Okay.
Heresy of what?
It's a lot of
Separateness.
Spanish than we have in the English.
What is that? What is that? Book.
It's a glossary in Spanish.
Also,
Wow.
There was a lot more added. Yeah.
Okay, so anyone else ideas about charity?
well, the one thing about charity we haven't mentioned is that it's not always about giving money or gifts
Right.
or time. Sometimes charity is accepting someone as they are and helping them just advance without pushing them or, you know, everybody has a lot of ability, although it's not always given the opportunity to exercise it. And so, you know, a lot of what Westerners think of as charity has been practiced throughout the years and not really done what it's supposed to do. Like, we'll go to a undeveloped or developing country to help them farm. So then we go there and we take seeds there and we take fertilizer there and we take equipment there that they don't have access to fixing or repairing. And the seeds that we give them, you have to buy every year. It's not like seeds that you grow for one season and then whenever the fruit and vegetable comes, you save some of those and you plant them the next year. So you only get seeds once and they last you for a lifetime because you take part of the crop and you grow it. But the way our seeds are made, they don't always work that way. So someone has to, whatever they grow, then they have to sell it to be able to buy to grow next year. And that's just a basic thing, that the way we do things in the West is different than the way they've been done for centuries and the way other countries do. And so it's like these problems that you try to address hunger in a place where you try to help them grow, but they don't have access to water. So first you have to build wells and you have to have a system to get the water to the field so they can grow. But all that stuff, it's a bigger picture of charity instead of just, well, we're going to send, you know, $200 million and we're going to send them tractors. And it's like, okay, well, where do they get the fuel? How do they afford the fuel? There's that kind of stuff that we as people in the West, or you see a homeless person, so you put a $100 check and send it to the mission. And then every 2 weeks, you get a letter from the mission saying, we really need help. So what are you buying? Are you buying food for people and housing for the people in the mission? Or are you buying them some food and housing and they're spending the rest on clerical people to mail to get more money?
Organization.
As an organization.
Yeah.
And most of the charities, like if you look at charities or in the United States, a lot of them, 80% just goes to administration and salaries. So you're giving someone $100 for the Red Cross and $20 of it ends up as a cot in a hurricane district or as a blood that's exported to people where there's, you know, a tornado or hurricane. So the whole aspect of like the right season, the right consideration of giving and charity, there's a really big picture that we have to look at. Sometimes it's better, instead of doing it, give someone on the street $20, or you could go and buy them a meal for $20. Well, if they got $20, they would spend it in a different way because $20 is a big deal. It's not just, you know, 2 orders of McDonald's.
Yeah, sometimes even just talking to them like they're a human.
Yeah.
Sometimes that you can change someone's day, week even with a conversation. Like, because so many people today, they're having a hard time or just are really used to just constant negative, like just negative reinforcement, just constant. And so it's like, I mean, even for me, you know, someone that just treats me well, puts you in a good mood, imagine what it does for people that are like really, really struggling, you know.
And sometimes it's something very small. You know, it's not $20. They just, you know, it's amazing if like you say, you talk to them.
Yeah, I have a good story about that. My husband owned a restaurant called La Petite Auberge in New York City, and I came outside the door, and there was a raving man. I mean, he was standing in the middle of Lexington Avenue, raging all over the place. And I stood there, and I walked over to him while everyone was running away, and I touched him. I just touched him. And that touch, that he knew he was human, and he was not like a ranting, raving, crazy person, he calmed down completely. And I said, would you like to come into our restaurant for some dinner? And he just walked away, but he just changed completely. He stopped ranting and raving. I mean, he was like a lunatic. And I was like, wow, this is some experience. And, you know, when he calmed down, I said, you know, maybe he needs a meal. But he didn't really want any, but it's just that touch, that love, to know that you love another person and that we love each other is really important.
Just to show him he's not invisible, and it's huge.
And that someone cares.
Yeah.
You know, he's aware at that point, or something switches where he says, oh, someone cares.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, having that charity of mind towards others in that way is one of the most important things. Like Roberto was saying, we influence things, people, places, people in the unseen world. We don't even know how we influence, but that, you know, just touch and that changed. If we could see in the unseen world all the changes that happen when you did that touch, you know, I think we would be more amazed, and that would give us even more hope that how much change can happen when we have that charity of mind. And I think that's, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. With a touch of healing and love to let him know that there were people that were not just running away. Here I was coming up and giving him attention and offering him a meal, but just that universality, you know, that you were talking about, that brotherhood. And, you know, I didn't see anything in the way his actions were and the way my actions were are very different, but I had that energy in me, that healing ability, and I just touched him to see if I could heal him and help him, you know, and bring him some, you know, true love that it looked like he was missing.
Okay.
Okay. Good experience.
Thank you.
My grandfather say always, if somebody is hungry, okay, it's like don't give it a fish.
Oh, yeah.
Teach how you feed fish, something like that. Yes, because the hungry is coming again.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with the old knowledge. If we think about that one, if we explain somebody, you know, what we learn a little bit, and another person is not open to learn, it's like tirar las perlas a un cerdo, ¿cómo se diría?
Versus swine, yeah.
Yes. It's the same thing with the we are talking about. It depends how is the other person.
Right.
It has to be this person has to understand, and this person, because we couldn't give you all the food for everybody.
Right.
It's like in the Bible they say also something like that the poor people is always, but me is not always. Something like that they say about the poor people. And that's one is not only they think, but that's what I think right now. This one is not about the poor financial, economic battling. It's what they have it inside. That's what the lady, they say he changed the person when they touch. It's that one. The people, the most of the people, they are not hungry for food. They are hungry for inside. They need, like he said, feeling love, feeling somebody they care. It's like I don't like to talk about too much, but it's like a elemental. The elemental, they live inside to that body. It's like they have some portal.
Hungry ghost.
or like what is it, Tibetan Buddhism? Kind of like the
Hunger,
hungry, yeah, like that, like they can't help it. Or,
tiny mouth, a huge belly.
It's in,
Or-
it's in Shinto too.
maybe
Yeah.
lack of dopamine, I think that's something.
I said
Well,
that.
yeah, in the Bible, it's called the poor of spirit. So therefore, we that have more spirit, more energy, more ability to, see these things, we can go and we can help others. That's part of our service we do.
The story I was going to share, I was always told about these stories of my grandpa when I was growing up. He was really old when I was around with him. He used to own this huge wheat farm in like southern Idaho. And my parents would tell me about like, sometimes there'd be like drama or trouble on the farm once in a while because they would just kind of complain about this stuff. But what I would hear is this beautiful story about how my grandpa would, he'd go to a real extent to give people that were troubled in the community, like, the town drunk or guys like that, or like people that just gotten out of jail that were put in jail when they were really young, migrant workers, stuff like that. He went to give them jobs, not to just try and get them handouts or anything, give them jobs because he realized like you give this person a community. Not only you're giving them like a way to take care of themselves financially, you can make friends with colleagues. They can build a whole life from just a job. And but then of course, the story that would come down through my mom was about like one guy would have, he'd come get back on the wagon and show up to work like drunk and let a horse out or something. So you hear little bad things, but I didn't hear about the probably like scores of lives that were changed by just my grandpa just having like a soft spot for like hard luck people, and like, I'm sure it's huge.
Well, I think you touched upon like one of the things that Theosophy also promotes is self-reliance. So like instead of giving the fish to the hungry, you promote them to be self-reliant. You help them to bring, the self-reliance, and then they benefit, much more from that.
Yeah.
There's a passage in the Words of the Silence that says that not to become like an stagnant pond, which means to disseminate the ideas of Theosophy is trying to help people also in that sense that if somebody is asking you things or somebody just, is asking certain questions or they're kind of going through a certain trouble, there's ways that we can put Theosophy without saying, Mula Prakriti or Paramahansa and all of that. No offense, Tanya.
That's interesting though, like the stagnant pond, because that's how water stays fresh. It has to
That's
move.
whatever you go.
Yeah,
So
there has to be.
when it is like, she reminded me of that. Whatever you're learning, let it go. Which means, how you can explain in your own terms or in the terms of the person that will understand how you're trying to help. So that's another way of being service to other people, disseminating these ideas.
Yeah, helping like to bring out the best in people, bring out their best so they can be too.
Another good Bible quote was, we shouldn't hide our light under a bushel. We have something good. It's not a secret.
Right.
To let people know.
Okay, so the next quote is also from that Theosophical magazine, but it touches on another aspect of charity that you were talking about, like with karma. Someone want to read that one?
I'll read.
Okay,
3.
yes.
Mother of all virtues and the foundation of true happiness is charity. It is charity of mind and attitude that comes from a knowledge of universal brotherhood and the law of karma, especially in their bearing of the mysterious power of affinity. For instance, if I dislike someone in thought and attitude or attain a malevolent feeling, even if the one disliked is unaware of it, not only will my negative thoughts hurt him, but I would have generated a karmic reaction in him such that in some later life, he will be the cause of creating obstruction in the path of my life, and I will reap the bitter fruit of my past uncharitable thoughts and feelings. One who hurts another even in thought suffers pain and sorrow in the backlash of karmic retribution. and the one who is hurt is rewarded by the just laws of compensation. And I was just one thing where we're seeing science actually approaching this exact subject, and I mean, depending on who you are, proving it that yeah, like just thinking or observing something with a set standard or idea changes it, like not just to you, literally changes it.
Observer principle.
Yeah, the observer principle. The karmic effect of unwarranted criticisms of others and an attitude of discontent and complaint against circumstances of life in which the just law of karma has placed us, which seems unpleasant, has the same adverse effect, causing more trouble and unhappiness. An attitude of acceptance and faith and confidence in the absolutely just law, whose heart is mercy, is the surest way to peace. By charitable attitude and resignation, even enmity can be transformed into friendship and hatred into love. Difficulties and challenges that come in life into opportunities for growth in moral strength, resilience, and wisdom. How can we ever grow with adversities and challenges? This is the path of love. It alone and nothing else holds the key to happiness in life. Therefore, if we are wise and wish to live a happy life, we must cultivate charity, goodwill to all, ill will to none, not even in respect to those who may be ill disposed towards us, and maintain a steady, unwavering heart above likes and dislikes in all circumstances. Wow, that was really beautifully written, and these anonymous saints to write this stuff. Wow, if I wrote that, I want to learn it.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, this is another student's perspective, and so we take it into consideration, but it's not, we have to form our own understandings of this too, but it helps to kind of bring like some practicalities.
It's so important to have, for me, I think, and a lot of people, the ill will towards other people or these bad thoughts, they're so much more destructive to you. But even if you do have this enemy and you wish him ruin, you ruminating on that is going to cause you more ruin than you'll ever be able to deliver on this person. Like, why would you want to? That just perpetuate this stuff. And it's like, I mean, for me, the biggest reason I try not to be negative is just the destruction of wreaks on myself.
Okay, on the page 53 on the Voice of the Silent, they say in number 6, they say Diana, but before the Diana is the Dharana,
DHARA?
yeah, because one they have the opportunity to concentrate and they contemplate. Okay, because this one coming on mind when they say in the first line, is the charity of mind. What kind of mind we're talking about? Okay, the regular mind, the lower mind, what mind? And the attitude, what is the reason for to do it? What is my, okay, what is the reason? What is the attitude? The reason, the attitude. So this one they say knowledge. They come in knowledge for universal brotherhood and the law of karma. We're talking before about the responsibility of the karma. Okay, it's like in insurance, we have one they say, what do I see? Error and omission.
Error of omission?
Thank you.
Okay, error of omission.
Okay, we understand.
Mhm.
Yeah, error and omission. Is that one they can be together? Because if that one is, if we make some error, they cover the insurance. But also the omission, they want supposed to, we have to do it.
Mhm.
So that one had to be with that two of them. Error.
There's a lot of crimes of omission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if we have, but at the same time, the mind has to be the natural mind. I don't know if I can explain myself, but I will keep saying. The natural mind is no where prejuicio,
Prejudice?
with that. Why? Because when they have it, one very, very dangerous moment, when we need to save the life, we are not thinking about ourselves. We're thinking to doing what we're supposed to do. If I think twice, I will do it. For example, if they have some fire and there's a child there, the human being is to save that being. We are not thinking about, okay, if I save, I'm going to be burned or something like that. We are not thinking. When the mind thinks twice, it's another kind of mind.
No, I got you. And there's no religion that we need to teach us that's going to make us act that way. It's human. Like, those ethics and those morals are just part of being part of humanity. They're not something that has to be taught us by like religion or something like that.
Well, they are, unless you're disconnected from that, because that's why there's people that act that we can't understand how they can do that. And that's because they're not connected to that part of their nature.
Yeah.
So they're just operating from like a purely human animal nature.
Yeah.
What's good for me is good for me, and that's it.
And it's so hard to understand. Like, yeah, our human reaction would be save this child. To even try to understand a reaction different is really hard to put yourself in those shoes.
And there are human beings who, I don't know how to say this, they quote unquote, they look normal, but they might be not fully developed like here. But if you look at them, you like just looking like an ordinary person. But maybe they have a deficiency, and they won't react. They won't go in there. Well, to save the child.
And even without like speaking of like physical mental deficiencies or something, isn't there people out there that aren't really, that are remnants of
that too,
things that aren't really what we would consider fully human?
That's
what it describes is people that spend enough time not following their conscience, they sever that link. So that's how someone can, become a purely selfish, soulless being, really, because they're only operating from lower mind and karma, physical nature and energy.
Like with enough wrong thought and wrong action, you can actually sever it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no excuse for that person. You can't say that they're
it's hard.
Brain problem.
Hard to say.
Well, if you think about karma and reincarnation, yeah, what if they created this all along?
That's that too, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we've touched upon like what is the difference between like charity of just, society and what's actual spiritual charity, like spiritual. And I think we've seen like what is the difference in that.
Agreed.
Okay, so the next paramita or virtue is SHILA. This is another intricate one, the key of harmony and word and act, and the key that counterbalances the cause and the effect, and leaves no further room for karmic action. So that one, what do some people think about what that actually means? Key of harmony and word and act.
I mean, it's a lot of like what we touched on before with being present or being active and focused in your life when you like living meditatively. So everything is present, everything is done with intent, with right thought, right action, and you have enough, good karma built up and enough experience and things to be able to trust your instincts that they will be right thought and this but to try and live not through reactionarily, to have intent and purpose with every thought and deed, I think.
For me, one part of the view, the most important is the harmony. This is the base, is the is the base of SHILA.
Mm.
Because I can have everything beside without harmony, doesn't work as supposed to be.
No machine works without harmony. Like when the little gears is off, that's not harmony and nothing. It's not gonna at least work to its best.
James,
Yeah.
question.
I think also, you say you're gonna do something, do it. Because if you say you're gonna do something and you don't do it, then you're not in balance, you're not in harmony.
Then you put the intent out there,
Yeah,
and
and then you don't do it, then it's like, that's not harmony.
it's a really good point.
James, can you read number 4? Do you have that? Is that kind of addresses exactly that.
Okay. With each morning's awakening, try to live through the day in harmony with the higher self, writes HPB. That in turn leads to integrated character. SHILA has been defined as the key of harmony in word and act, the key that counterbalances the cause and the effect, and leaves no further room for karmic action. Harmony in word and act means we must not allow our good intentions to remain mere intentions, but act on them. As Carlyle says, the end of man is an action and not a thought, though it were the noblest. Psychologists say that each thought has energy, and if good intentions, plans, wishes, etc. remain in your brain and are not translated into actions, it gives rise to nervous tension.
Topical. Exactly. That's great.
Will we keep going?
Yeah, go on.
Harmony among student workers and disciples is of utmost importance. This harmony is not to be achieved by force. Too much trying to force harmony. Harmony comes from balancing of diversities and discord from any effort to make harmony by force, advises Mr. Judd. We might say harmony is a concept of dynamic sharing. It is unity in diversity. Confucius said, a gentleman gets along with others, but does not necessarily agree with them. He tries to achieve harmony even in disagreement, and thus showing that one should acknowledge differences, but also work towards harmony and balance by adding what is missing and reducing what is excess. The voice of the silent says, disciples may be likened to the strings of a soul echoing Vina, the string that fails to answer neath the master's touch in dulcet harmony with all the others breaks and is cast away. When a disciple refuses to adjust and persists in being separate and assertive, then like an overstretched string which breaks, he may find a crack developing in his inner consciousness, and the silver string that binds him to his divine nature might be stretched unduly, making it difficult for him to get guidance from the master within. Being in harmony is very important. We may not agree with another, and yet acknowledging his uniqueness, we may accept and absorb peculiarities of his nature.
Dynamic sharing is a perfect word for that, because you think of music when you think of harmony. And so dynamic sharing, if you've seen like a jam band or someone just jazz rocking out, or just friends, like they're dynamically sharing, and that's the harmony. That's where it comes from. It seems really easy.
Roberto, and then Tanya.
Well, and also, going along with that, the idea that, to be in harmony with everybody doesn't mean that you have to agree with everybody. Like it says here, right? Because,
In Sherto, you're supposed to be almost fighting.
right, yeah. But being in harmony means that you kind of accept everybody as they are. You don't maybe, you don't agree with a lot of things, but you accept how they are. And therefore, the analogy of the strings, you have an instrument that if, you have a guitar, for example, if one string is out of tune, the whole guitar sounds out of tune. But that applies to the sevenfold principle in ourselves. It's like, I need to have all the strings tuned up, because if one string is not, then the whole, the whole is untuned. So the idea is that being in harmony, I think at least in humanity, you just have to keep trying your best. Because how do you harmonize these 7 principles that we're supposed to be, or we're supposed to really, not that we are those virtues, but we do use them. So the idea of harmonizing among people, I think it's everything that has been said. They're just trying to do the best. And sometimes maybe you're still not harmonized totally, but you're trying to be in harmony with everybody. And it's a work that we have to do. It's not just because I think, because I read this, and I'm gonna be in harmony. There's something that has to be done within yourself. You gotta really not only think it, but also do it and feel it. Because I can say that I'm in harmony with you, but maybe I don't feel any harmony at all.
Sure. Or maybe we don't.
Maybe you don't,
You know, you think that you do, but someone else doesn't feel it.
Right.
But I think that's, all these, virtues encompass each other, because I think when we're in harmony, if we are truly in harmony, we have charity of mind towards each other. We have, we'll see the next one's patience. They all, it's interesting because when you really think about them in this universal way, they all encompass each other, and we can't really seem to separate them either.
I think I love it, like what you said, that it doesn't require agreement. But harmony doesn't require agreement. Sure, it helps, but like what it requires is sharing and responding and civility and a harmonious dialogue. Doesn't require, and for an organization or a family or something to be in harmony, everybody doesn't have to agree on everything. They just have to respect that in other people. I love that. Thank you.
Yes,
I just want to say something really quick, and that is that if we look at the harmony of the planets, it's pretty amazing because each one of the planets helps another planet. And we have water on Earth, I understand, because of the way that the planets circle the sun and the way that their elliptic is. It makes ours elliptic shorter. And it's just an amazing thing how this balance and harmony happens. And we're supposed to be like these planets in our emotions and in our feelings and in the way we express ourselves. And I love that what you said about these virtues helping each other. That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I often think about the planets and how their orbits are, the energy from them, the push and the pull is in harmony so that they do not crash into each other, or other things happen. I mean, we know other things like that do happen in space, but, for a certain time, this harmony and motion is happening, which is pretty awesome.
There's a purpose why it's not crashed yet.
Yeah.
On a physical level, I can understand the physics and I can understand the scientific concepts behind the moon changing tides and things like that. But that still seems insane. I get the science of it, but whoever set that up, that's such a wild thing to say. If God did that, or some intelligent,
Moon is mysterious.
there's some crazy symbolism and things to learn by that, I think, just because it makes sense scientifically doesn't mean it's still wild.
I think it's sort of rare too, like the way our setup is with the Earth and the Moon and the Sun and our solar. I think it's sort of rare as compared to other places. So it's like makes you think, what's really going on? The Moon is pretty mysterious.
Or like how fragile.
All the planets, where are the metaphysics behind all?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just like what you said, like the planets and nature being in harmony doesn't mean that everything's being nice to each other. Nature can be really brutal. It's the most brutal, but it's harmony.
Right.
Yeah.
okay, they say how to study the SD, they say with analogy, okay? So I'm going to have one analogy for harmony. Los coros, ¿cómo se dicen los coros?
Fire.
Okay, that one. When we hear we hear only one voice, but it's different level of voice. And it's in the end, we only listen one. In that one, they have a perfect harmony. They don't fight to say, okay, my voice is better than other one. They think on group for once. For me, it's an excellent example for harmony.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I mean, yeah, when you listen to a choir, you kind of are listening to them as a whole. You're not listening to who, like
It's
jumping
only one
around.
voice.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's different kind of voice.
And that's the point. That's to be successful. They're achieving. Nice.
Well, there's an analogy on the planets. If we think on ourselves, is it just my body, my feelings, my thinking, my emotions? We become convinced that there's something else besides the physical part of me. So I think, let's say, I think of a being within this body. So if we use that analogy to the planets, there's an intelligent being for each planet.
Yes.
So, but we only see the outer part.
Yes.
Like I only see your body, but I know that, at least I learned that you have at least 6 other aspects that I cannot perceive or see. But at least, now I think about them. So the planets are the same.
Yes.
They're just, they're kind of directed by these intelligences, made united to the sun, we might say, because the sun is the heart of the whole universe. And therefore, they follow their intention accordingly, like he said. But it depends then, now going back to the earth, what does it make the earth? Humanity. So humanity is the earth. And we contribute to everything that happens on earth, even the earthquakes, the rain, and everything. And so far then, if we take that to other planets, then there's gotta be certain beings that we do not see or perceive, because there's also an intelligent being behind that planet. And therefore, for the whole solar system, sometimes it's called the solar logos, which is another, I'm just personalizing things, It's like we can think of a fantastical being that his body is the solar system. So we can go on, and then we see how the universe is really one being.
It's a living
But
entity.
with many different aspects, and each aspect is focused in certain forms. And so we get to the point of earlier, that's that unity, the unity and diversity, or the one and the all, So that's one explanation about the planets, at least for Theosophy.
Well, like everybody here, our bodies are an entire planet of its own little ecosystem with the parasites and the things that are living off of us in symbiosis and in parasitic natures. It's crazy. I mean, it just keeps growing and growing, and you see it's the same thing on that universal level.
Well, and that's, another aspect of it. Theosophy teaches that we influence all the little lives within us. So for us to have those in harmony, our thoughts have to be harmonious too. And
Sure.
that's big influence.
It's a sick body, sick mind, yeah. Sure. Can I ask one question before we end that I wrote down a note? So it mentioned before the mystery of affinity. Can anybody explain that more? Right here. It is charity of mind and attitude that comes from a knowledge of universal brotherhood and the law of karma, especially in their bearing of the mysterious power of affinity. I don't think it's talking about a law of attraction. It's what?
I feel like it is,
That's what you think.
but I don't think it's in the Western way, or
Right.
what is it in the New Agey sort of? How should I put it? I don't think it's in because affinity would mean synchronicity, right?
Or affinity is,
Drawn to, yeah.
affinity is like what Roberta was talking about before. If you put out anger, you're gonna work as a magnet attracting anger.
Sure.
And so there's groups of people that you might meet someone you've never met before and feel like, oh, I've known this person for a long time. That's affinity, but it's a karmic nature. Because you haven't developed a personal relationship with them yet, but for some reason you're comfortable or you're uncomfortable with them. Right from the beginning.
Oh.
And so that's, you know, we all have a certain people are drawn to the ideas in Theosophy. People might come here for 2 years and say, you know what, I've studied that. I have no idea what they're talking about.
No, that never.
Or you have people that for a long time study, you know, Buddhism, Christianity, and they might come here and get the ideas, but they feel more better associating in that group.
Okay, so we can call it invisible familiarity.
That's one way.
A really good example is just what's happening right now. There's more energy and more activity around the lodge and around the Theosophical community here, and so there's more just random people coming and checking the place out. There's more external interest, and it's really not due to that much effort. It's just due to action, just
It's due to two kinds. It's due to physical action, and it's due to mental action, and it's due to intention. Everyone being in this room had to have the intent to come here and to participate in what's going on. So, and then we're here. So that's like 3 levels of energy just to come here. The people that are online, it's the same thing. You have to, and that's the whole metaphysics of seeing how things play out. A lot of times people think, oh, that just happened. But it didn't just happen, it just happened to happen at that time because all the forces of nature made it happen. All the collective minds, all the way karma worked out, didn't work out with all the different individualities at a particular time, then it manifests as, it's like, how do sometimes, you know, sometimes someone comes up with an invention, people have been working on it for 20 years, and all of a sudden someone comes up with an invention that doesn't seem related to it, and then they find out, oh, but all this other experiments that were going on, this person put it all together, and now we have something no one ever thought about. Or they used all these bits of experiments that people were trying in physics, in medicine, in chemistry, in surgery, and then someone's able to say, oh, you know what, but if we put these together, we can now apply this and use it as a way to operate on something.
penicillin.
You know,
So,
and
but that was like the product of all these causes of all this energy of mind.
Wow.
on a basic level, if you're angry all the time, eventually you're gonna get indigestion. No matter what you eat. You could eat oatmeal and you're eventually gonna get indigestion.
Oh, this was a good one.
All right, well, yeah, there's more, we haven't gotten into Shanti patients or Viraga, but we can continue that.
Should we continue next time? Okay.
Okay, send me.
I will. I'm going to start using a different email address, guys, because I think mine's just going into too many people's junk. So I'll try a different method. Next week, I have some like business kind of people in town next weekend. If someone wants to do a class next weekend,
I can do the class if someone wants to do the online.
I'll be here. I just don't. I want to like focus on
Yeah.
I'll be here and do this. Yeah.
All right.
So next time
We'll do, we'll just go over some of the aphorisms on karma.
Oh, perfect. We were just talking about that. Great. And I'll post it on the link, guys, and hopefully you'll get it. If you guys aren't getting the links, reach out to me, please. Hopefully it's gonna email the town. I think my just old one is just too flagged as junk, so.
I get it all the time.
I get it, yeah.
I'm gonna just copy in the one I'm currently using and copy a new one, so it'll get through people's junk, hopefully.
Yeah, because there's probably people you have on an email list that either aren't responding or they're not interested or they might not get it.
Yeah, that's it. So I wanna make sure.
Yeah.
Well, if it's the first time you send an email to somebody, it might go to junk. But then they got on their side, they have to
Accept it, yeah.
change that. on your inbox instead of going to junk.
I think I'll be good. I can figure it out. It's supposed to be my job. So it's supposed to be part of my profession. I should know this. All right, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good day.
Story.